Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Tuesday afternoon. Bo Wolf, Zach Berman here to preview OTAs for the Eagles, which are open to the media for the first time tomorrow. I'm going to run through everything that we want to see. But before we do that, Zach, we've got some Eagles news to talk about. We could, you know what, we danced around the possibility of doing an emergency podcast last night, or maybe even early this morning. But we thought, no, you know what? Let's let the anticipation build. Let's give the people what they want. Tuesday afternoon. Zach, what's the tea?
So DeVante Parker, Eagles wide receiver, retired, as he told ESPN's Adam Schefter last night. He was with the team for 3 months and I guess 1 day of OTAs. And now the Eagles, so the veteran wide receiver retires. He wants to spend more time with his family. You can respect that.
No wonder you hated him so long.
The Eagles are now, they have 10 wide receivers on their roster, and they have 88 players in their 91-man roster. 87 players on their 90-man roster. So room to add if they would like to add. But this does leave them with a void of a reliable or experienced veteran wide receiver who they signed early in free agency. Doesn't affect them cap-wise. There was no guaranteed money on his deal. But certainly you can respect someone who wants to spend time with his family after nearly a decade in the NFL.
Okay, I can already sense, Zach, that you are trying to push. You do not want to deal with the idea that this is a continuation of Zach knowing ball. And we had the great creative heater of 2019. There's no doubt that in 2024 we are in the year of Zach as the football soothsayer. Okay, you've been predicting and pegging the Eagles' moves every step of the way. And part of the process here, part of the story, is you just crushing the DeVante Parker signing the day that it was made. You can pretend that you have no connection to this event, but what Adam Schefter left out of the message that DeVante Parker sent him is that part of the reason he's stepping aside is because he was a little bit scared of having to look you face to face, knowing that he did not measure up to your standards.
No, not at all. I was actually looking forward to watching DeVante play this spring and this summer. Certainly, I mean, when I've seen him in person, he's been outstanding as a wide receiver. I vividly remember that game in 2019 when you and I had to fend for our lives afterwards in the rough Miami Gardens area of Miami. But no, the reality is, a week ago we did our 53-man roster projection. I did not have him on the 53.
The chat
at that
is
point.
Lighting up for the audio listeners with Zach.
No, so to give the backstory because we're always acquiring, or I should say attracting new listeners here. We're not in the acquiring business; we're in the attracting business here. When the signing occurred, I don't want to say underwhelmed. I was just nonplussed.
Livid, I think, is a fair description.
No, it didn't. Look, we did emergency shows for every player, and I found the DeVante Parker signing. I was unmoved by it. And the reality is, I think the Eagles were kind of unmoved by it too, in the sense that they did not guarantee him any they did not guarantee him any money.
He was being paid by the Patriots.
Well, they could have paid him more than what the Patriots were paying.
Well, why on earth would they do that?
Well, if there was a market for him, is my point, right?
Well, sure.
So it was a
free roll.
It was a free roll for someone who was experienced. They were definitely looking for size on the outside, and we can get into that because they are inexperienced in terms of a backup wide receiver for AJ Brown, and then they were seeking more experience, I think, overall for the wide receiver core this offseason. And you lost a guy who's played for nearly a decade in the NFL and has had productive moments. I just think that this was kind of, I don't even want to say insurance for the draft. They drafted Johnny Wilson, they drafted Anais Smith, two totally different receivers. But this was done to kind of give them veteran depth, but nothing guaranteed. I did not expect him to make the 53-man roster, but we'll never find out if he would have or he will not have.
I actually think that this is a bigger deal than maybe we're making, like, or you were making it out to be. Like, even if, and listen, I did the same exercise and I had him off, but it was like very much on, like on the bubble. But the truth is that 2 days ago, DeVante Parker was the third best wide receiver on the Eagles roster. Okay. And
You think over Paris Campbell?
yes, he is a better
Because of
wide
accomplishment?
receiver today than Paris Campbell is. I mean,
Okay.
he has done more almost every single year of his career than Paris Campbell has done in every single year of his career, except for one. And Paris Campbell is a complete dice roll of even staying healthy, let alone
That's
being
fair.
productive. The Eagles threw numbers at the wide receiver 3 spot. That's part of why DeVante Parker made sense, because
Sure.
there was no downside to it. Even he's retired, and here we are again. But they did not sign a player of significance there. They did not draft a player before round 5 there. Ania Smith might be awesome. Johnny Wilson might be, DeVante Parker 2.0. Paris Campbell might stay healthy. Maybe Britton Covey can turn into a quality slot receiver. But for all of the focus on like the roster machinations that they've had and the fact that they have now extended DeVante Smith and A.J. Brown, that third wide receiver is going to be on the field a lot, right? The Eagles are going to be in 11
fair.
personnel 75% of the time, probably. And right now, they don't have anybody who they can count on. They have a lot of guys who they're hoping for, but they also don't have great, insurance for if DeVante Smith or A.J. Brown get injured, which, knock on wood, they have not over the past 2 years, despite A.J. Brown having a history of injuries and, DeVante Smith being pegged as a potential injury risk entering the league because he's so slight. The Eagles have been fortunate there. That may not stay the case. If we are going to look back on this offseason, and if there is anything that Howie Roseman has not done that we're going to look back on, to me, and we have been saying it all along, it is the absence of a significant wide receiver 3 here. So it's not like DeVante Parker's down, the season's ending, but more so, they cannot be done here, is my expectation.
No, that's a really good point. And for full disclosure, there's a piece up now on allphly.com. I put it up last night among its possibilities in free agency and via trade. And what I'll say is that this market has dried up some, even after the draft, right? If they wanted to make a move after the draft, Tyler Boyd and I think Marquise Valdes-Scantling, there were a few guys there, and that market's dried up a bit. There's still guys available, and we can get to that. But you are right in terms of number 3 wide receivers, and you have to kind of look at it from a body type perspective too. Ania Smith is in a different conversation than DeVante Parker. Now with A.J. Brown and with DeVante Smith, these are 2 players that the Eagles can move inside. So the third receiver could play on the outside, and Smith and or Brown could be on the inside. So it's not as if they need like a prototypical slot guy as the third wide receiver. But I do know that the Eagles felt they needed to have a reliable or a dependable backup for A.J. Brown, like a big-bodied prototypical X receiver. And some of their futures deals were big-bodied guys, but that's what DeVante Parker gave you. And there's going to be a lot of attention on Johnny Wilson this spring and this summer. And that's a lot to expect of a 6th-round pick who was not like a prolific producer in college. You see traits that you think you can develop, as the Eagles said on draft weekend. He's unique, but certainly I don't think you go into a season unless there's an outstanding spring and summer saying, all right, Johnny Wilson's the top backup for A.J. Brown on the outside. And so that I think there are a number of options they can put at wide receiver 3, and wide receiver 3 in this offense is really the 5th option in the passing game. Because obviously you have your top 2 receivers, Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley. But we saw in week 18 and in the playoffs what happens when DeVante and or AJ are down. And then the other part too is the Eagles just don't have someone who you say, this is your number 3. And to the point about DeVante Parker being more proven than Paris Campbell, a reasonable argument could be made that the Eagles have actually downgraded here when you consider Quez Watkins had meaningful Now he struggled last year. I get that, but Quez Watkins might have given you more in the past 2-3 years than what Paris Campbell or what DeVante Parker, might have did. So
Well, I
this
think
is
you are now being unfair
yeah.
to DeVante Parker.
Okay, but this is a roundabout way of saying.
I mean,
that,
DeVante Parker had 33 catches for 394 last year, not great, and then 31 for 539 the year before that. Quez Watkins in the last 2 years has I'll look it up.
That's fair. You're right.
142 last year and 354 the year before. So even the year before was not terrible. But and listen, that is a problem with the Eagles offense and has been a problem with the Eagles offense. They have not utilized all of their available receivers. Jalen Hurts doesn't throw to the other guys on the field, even if they're open. We've all seen the clips of Jack Stoll or Grant Calcaterra just standing there wide open, Albert O, and he doesn't throw them the ball. Quez Watkins, he's in theory is stretching the shape, the geometry of the defense because they have to respect his speed. But Jalen Hurts, especially last year, was not throwing those passes. And to be fair, I think that was part of the reason of the allure of DeVante Parker, because the thing that DeVante Parker does is catch contested balls on the outside. And those are the balls that Jalen Hurts is willing to throw. And so the theory of Paris Campbell or Britton Covey or Aeneas Smith is all reliant on Jalen Hurts throwing passes that he doesn't usually like to throw or hasn't over the past couple of years, right? It is expecting a slightly different Jalen Hurts. The offense is going to be a little bit different. Maybe Jalen Hurts is going to buy into that. But right now, they don't have somebody who fills that role of the kind of player that Jalen Hurts might be willing to throw the ball to.
That's a valid point. So knowing the 10 receivers they have here, do you think that the Eagles look at the internal options? Do you think that they take this spring to see that? Or do you think Howie Roseman's meeting with his pro personnel staff right now saying who's our top option to bring in for one of these open roster spots?
Well, I'm sure that they're having those conversations, and I'm sure that they, before DeVante Parker retired, had their list of guys on the street and then also potential trade targets. My guess is let's go through the spring. Let's see how the rookies look. Let's see how Paris Campbell looks. Let's revisit this in the summer. I think they will be willing to part with a late round pick for a guy who has fallen out of favor somewhere. You mentioned Treylon Burks in your write-up. I think Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, the other guy on the Titans, is actually a potential fit as well because he's a dirty work player and can do a little bit on the outside. Let's see how the roster cuts shake out. But I think that this is an area where the Eagles are probably not done. If you had to guess right now, Zach, who's going to take the third most snaps on the team at wide receiver in 2024, who would you say?
I would say Paris Campbell. But again, I think you put it well when you said the theory of Paris Campbell, because it really is theoretical right now.
Yeah, Paris Campbell is like Rashad Penny from last year. It's let's put if we get 5 good games out of him, that's probably more than we could reasonably expect.
I like, or I know they like Aeneas Smith, but Professor Selman put this well on Twitter. He's a 5'9" wide receiver who never had more than 800 yards at Texas A&M
and didn't break 4.5.
Sure. So yeah, I said going into the draft, I thought they were going to take a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds. They did not do that, clearly, right? I was wrong about that. But they're in a position here where I do think this is something that they must address. And even when you talk about some of these guys that they signed on futures deals, whether it's returning players like Joseph Ngata, whether it's players like Jacob Harris, they really it's not as if you say, all right, this guy's going to be your number 3 wide receiver. It's players who are competing for back of the roster spots. Now, Britton Covey is someone who I think the Eagles will take a look at in the slot this offseason. When we had Britton Covey on the show at the Super Bowl, he mentioned in his first conversation with Kellen Moore that playing offense is something he's kind of training for this offseason. The big name that's out there, I don't know if you want to get to that now or if you want to hit on the break, but the big name that's out there is Michael Thomas. Now, Michael Thomas, similar to Paris Campbell, you're talking about extensive injury history. Okay, he's played, I think, 20 games in the past 4 years, but he is a former a former offensive player of the year who now you could say this is Julio Jones flashbacks from a year ago. He played last year and he had his most productive year in 3 years last year. So you could potentially do worse as the number 3 wide receiver, but I don't think Michael Thomas, you have a parade around Broad Street for bringing Michael Thomas at age 31.
It's not even that. I mean, even if Michael Thomas was magically healthy, they're not going to get through one practice without him and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson beating each other to death.
Slant boy. Like, they want competitive zeal, right?
2 guys walk on the field. Only one of them's walking out.
Sure.
Slant boy. You can't be bringing in slant boy.
So he's the best wide receiver still out there via free agency.
Well, he's the most accomplished.
The biggest name. He's the biggest name. Fair. There's I put McCole Hardman on there. McCole Hardman had a forgettable season with the Jets last year.
Actually, it was a memorable season.
Yeah, that's true. Then he goes to the Chiefs, catches the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. McCall, he's someone who has production in the NFL, still young, doesn't give you the size on the outside. While we go through these names, I should ask you, do you think the size on the outside matters? Do you think you should just look for the best option you can find, or do you think they need that big-bodied, prototypical X receiver?
I actually do think that the size specifications is probably overstated, especially at this point. Like, whoever the best guy out there is, find a way to play him.
Sure.
If he's a slot guy, great. If he is better on the outside, then Devontae Smith and AJ Brown can go inside, right? Like, I think beggars can't be choosers here on that front.
There's Corey Davis, who retired last year, filed his papers to return back in March. Davis was a hotly pursued free agent back in 2021, played 2 seasons with the Jets, has experience as that prototypical outside receiver, 6'3", 209. He's someone who, when you look at draft pedigree, which the Eagles have clearly paid attention to this offseason, he certainly has that, former number 5 pick in the draft. But again, he retired last year. Speaking of that draft class, the Eagles had John Ross work out for them at the rookie minicamp. They, of course, did not sign him. John Ross hasn't played in the NFL since 2021. So, again, I don't know if that's your number 3 wide receiver.
I think Corey Davis fits if you were looking for the size thing, and less about the size than the willing to do the dirty work aspect, right? If you need somebody on the field who is willing to do a little bit of blocking, Corey Davis is very good at that, as just sort of being a bit player in the offense, not necessarily like angry if he doesn't get targeted. That would be one that in theory would make sense.
Then I did not put it on the list, but Hunter Renfrow in terms of the prototypical slot. Now that's a shot across Britton Covey's bow. Like if Britton Covey sees Hunter Renfrow come in, he's like, it's the Spider-Man meme. It's what are we doing here? Yes, yeah. I did not want to profile, but one would think that you have now Hunter Renfrow has far more production in the NFL than Britton Covey, but you would at least want to give Britton Covey a look in terms of style of play. And then I put this in partly as a joke for you, but you can't roll it out knowing the Eagles. Julio Jones is still out there, okay, on the free agent market. I think trading.
Zach, after everything you have accomplished over the course of this offseason with the DeVante Parker retirement, you deserve for Julio to come.
I put trade candidates on here, and that's the route I would go. Treylon Burks.
I have one other free agent for you before you get to the
let's hear. Yep.
As long as we're playing to type and being self-caricatures of ourselves, you know who's out there?
Who's that? Big Bob?
Someone who we interviewed at the Super Bowl.
DeAndre Carter.
You're goddamn right DeAndre Carter is out there.
He
Carter had 46 catches for 538 yards just 2 seasons ago.
Was he? And he was with the Chargers last year, correct?
He was, but he was just a special teams player for the most part.
They brought him over.
He was with the Raiders last year.
Oh, he was with the Raiders last
2 years ago.
Gotcha. Okay, so never overlapped.
He is 31
with Kellen Moore. Yeah. Trade candidates. Tennessee.
Now listen, we can talk about trade candidates, but it is true that everybody wants good wide receivers.
Yes,
it's going to take a unique situation for there to be somebody who's available.
But to the point that was made a few minutes ago, there were some guys out there 2 weeks ago like post draft, Tyler
Yes.
Boyd was out there.
Yes.
Right. And so the timing of this is not ideal. Now, that's not to say that perhaps the Eagles had inkling of this and they weren't interested in somebody else. But I do wonder if Parker had retired before the draft, if they would have signed someone after the draft, like a Tyler Boyd or Marquise Valdez-Scantling or someone like that. Now, speaking of Tyler Boyd, he goes to Tennessee. The Titans have this logjam now at wide receiver. They added Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd this offseason. Treylon Burks, who the Titans got in the A.J. Brown trade, right? They got the pick that they used to acquire him, but it was a different GM. It was a different head coach. Burks' production dropped last year. He's 24 years old. This is not to say that the Titans are looking to move him, but he's not at the top of the depth chart anymore. He would be intriguing to me as someone who a change of scenery type, yards after the catch, a different type of receiver. You can move him around the formation. That he's appealing to me. What do you think of Treylon Burks?
Yeah, I mean, you could make worse bets as a hoping for a change of scenery guy. I mean, that is a real like. I mean, how much more could you just dominate the Tennessee Titans franchise than by getting the guy who they drafted with the A.J. Brown pick? It's like a barrel of duck vaginas thing, but
a what?
It's the Louis C.K., but I don't want to very problematic, but it's the classic.
Okay.
How could you dominate a species more than that?
Yeah,
like, that would be very tough. But
although it's like this current Titans administration, that's not their problem. He's not their guy.
Well, yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, so, they get to throw the previous
exactly
group under the bus. Yeah. Absolutely. And I said before, Westbrook Akini makes a little bit of sense to me.
Good point too. Iowa always has those
there
tough
you go.
wide receivers. John Mechie from Houston. Houston has added. They added Diggs. They brought back Noah Brown. They have Nico Collins. They have Tank Dell. They have Robert Woods. Robert Woods, in theory, someone who could be available as well. But
what about Robert Woods?
Yeah, maybe so. Right, as far as a veteran. But John Mechie, who is a second-round pick in 2022, unfortunately missed his rookie season while recovering from a form of leukemia. It's wonderful to hear that he's healthy now. Returned last year. He played mostly, or not mostly in the slot, but a lot in the slot as a rookie, 44.5% of his offensive snaps in the slot, but he played outside at Alabama with DeVonte Smith for a period of time there. 5'11", 187, but still young, draft pedigree. And again, the Titans are in a situation this year where they've improved their wide receivers. It could be a numbers game there.
A bit of a numbers game. How loud is my dryer coming through to you, by the way?
Yeah, it's pretty loud.
It's
pretty loud, but
okay.
That's okay. It's
when we get to the reads, I'll turn off the dryer.
Okay. No, it's fine. It's part of the
it's sheets, and so it's not a full thing. It's not a full cycle, so there's a lot of clinking and clanking around.
It's part of the ambiance. Yeah, it's part of the ambiance.
Yes.
Yeah. When I hear that sound, I always get worried that like I left something in my pockets and that's what's causing the sound.
Oh, there you go.
That ever happened to you?
Yes, that has happened to me. Yeah. But once actually AirPods and they still worked.
That has happened to me as well with AirPods.
Nice. One other team that I think a potential and this is just like picking up a guy who has not worked out for them, the Panthers. So they've got Thielen, Xavier Legette, who they drafted, Deontay Johnson, who they traded for. That means that Jonathan Mingo and Terrace Marshall, both recent early round picks who have not done well, could potentially be free for a cheap price.
I would say of those two, Marshall's probably more available, right? Mingo's going into year 2 for them.
Yeah.
So still pretty early on. Marshall's going into the last year of his deal. He's going into year 4. That would be interesting to me. I mean, he certainly brings size. He was a big slot when he was at LSU, but you can probably move him around. I like that idea. That's a good one. Now we talked about trading a late round pick. I would be interested if I were Howie, and again, it takes 2 to tango, in a player for player deal, trade from their cornerback surplus, right? Because we talked about that they have numbers at corner. I don't know what Zach McPherson's value is coming off of a
Zach
season-ending injury.
McPherson's.
But,
I mean, I like Zach
yeah,
McPherson.
yeah.
No one's trading anything for Zach
No,
McPherson.
but maybe
I stand by
you're looking
Eli
at
Ricks. Eli Ricks
That's
to
what I
me
was
is the
gonna say.
guy who's going to be
Exactly.
traded.
Yeah. So if you told me Eli Ricks for a second-year wide receiver or a third-year wide receiver, I would not be opposed to that. And I would actually think the Eagles did good work taking an undrafted guy and you trade for someone who the reality is, and I like Eli Ricks a lot. I liked him when he was at training camp last year. Thought he did everything the Eagles asked him to do during the season. A wide receiver that they get via trade has a better chance of contributing meaningful snaps to the Eagles this year than Eli Ricks, who's now probably the fourth or fifth cornerback going into the season.
Yes, I think even probably lower than that.
Yeah.
All right, Zach. I know that for you tonight, you'll be chopping up just bits of DeVante Parker because he's just burnt meat at this point. But if you want to eat something else, ButcherBox could hook you up, because ButcherBox will allow you to easily find high-quality meat and seafood you can trust. 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, pork-raised, crate-free, and wild-caught seafood, humanely raised with no antibiotics or added hormones. I like that. I'm giggling at the comment from Andrew, who says he also likes to wash rocks with his bed sheets. It's pretty funny. The good things about ButcherBox: super convenient, delivered right to your doorstep, free shipping, so you don't have to pay for shipping, and you get the box curated to what you want. Do you want everything? A little bit of chicken, a little bit of beef, a little bit of pork, all that good stuff. Are you a Zach? You just want, give me the beef, give me the meat, man. That's available to you as well, and it's all high quality. And if you want, they'll even give you ideas for meals, so you don't have to bother with meal planning and the brain space, the decision fatigue that might bring about. ButcherBox can help you out with all of that good stuff. ButcherBox is offering our listeners an amazing offer where new users get free meat plus $20 off your first box. Join today using our link at butcherbox.com/PHLY and use code PHLY to receive this exclusive offer today before time runs out. As the buzzer sounds.
Yeah, look at that. So there's a phenomenon. I think it's like the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, something of that nature, where you see the same car on. It's like you pass by the same car all the time in your mind because it was on your mind. Well, anyways, I saw an ad the other day for shingles, and I bring this up because ever since we started having this Rite Aid ad, I keep having these reminders about shingles. It seems like shingles is in my lexicon more than it ever was. And I would say that it's very important to get vaccinated for shingles. Well, where can you do that? You can do that at your local Rite Aid. Protect yourself and your family by staying up to date on your immunizations. Rite Aid pharmacists are specially trained, certified immunizers. Most vaccines are no cost with insurance or through government plans like Medicare Part D. If you're unsure what vaccines you need, get a personalized recommendation from a Rite Aid pharmacist. Have questions about vaccines? Stop in and ask a Rite Aid pharmacist. I mentioned shingles, but that's not the only thing you can get vaccinated for at Rite Aid. Also, COVID-19, pneumonia, tetanus, whooping cough, chickenpox, and more. RSV is a highly contagious seasonal virus that infects the respiratory tract. If you are an individual over 60 and you want this one-time vaccine, or you're a pregnant woman during weeks 32 to 36 weeks of pregnancy from September through January, you're going to want that vaccine. And you can go on down the list. Anyways, select Rite Aid stores have a dedicated pharmacist ready to administer vaccines and answer all of your questions. If you have questions on what immunizations you need, if you're not sure if you're up to date or if you're feeling nervous to ask, a Rite Aid pharmacist will take the time to make personalized recommendations based on your health history and discuss any questions. No questions are too small. Just walk in or schedule an appointment Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. State age and health restrictions may apply. Ask a Rite Aid pharmacist for details.
I have some news.
What happened?
I found the culprit of the noise as I opened up the
Eagles
dryer.
news. Okay. What was it?
We have a seashell in Jane's sheets. Now I can explain.
How'd you get the seashell? Yeah, please.
When Rachel and I went to a wedding in the Outer Banks a couple weekends ago, Rachel brought the kids back some seashells. She sells seashells by the seashore.
Yep.
Jane had a particular affinity for this one. She was keeping it in her bed. Just got rolled in with the sheets. There you go.
Well, so there was something that was
there was something
it
wasn't
in there,
just
yeah. All right, well, I'm glad you got that out, because if it gets into the filter, that could cause some havoc inside, right? So
I guess
it's a good
so.
sign. Yeah.
So there you go. All right, I have now that we have talked about this from a serious football roster standpoint. Sure. Give us the lived experience of Zach Berman last night as this news broke, and you knew that the sickos were having a field day with your connection to this.
I felt uneasy, to be honest with you, because like I have no issue against him, and you're always afraid when there's an inside joke, what people who are not on the inside interpret it, right? So I don't want someone seeing this, certainly not DeVante Parker nor his family, to think that I have some type of issue with DeVante Parker, or that I'm like celebrating the fact that he's no longer in Philadelphia. I am happy for him. I respect someone who sees the big picture there, right? And I certainly hope that.
But who sees it differently than you do?
I wouldn't say sees it differently. I value my family. I'm fortunate that I have a job that allows me to do both, right? I mean, in particular, this time of year, right? There's demanding times during the season, but I would say, like, I'll be at my son's game tonight, my son's baseball game. I don't miss many of his baseball games this time of year, and if I was doing a different job, that might not be the case, right? So
but DeVante will have the rest of his life with those kids.
Well, I certainly hope so, right? That would be the
yes.
if he's so lucky, yeah. But look, he's made it 9 years in the NFL, is that right? I think to make it, yeah, the less that long in professional football. I mean, you've defied so many odds, so I would be happy for him, and so yeah, so I felt uneasy in all earnestness, because I certainly do, 9. I don't want the reaction to a 9-year veteran retiring.
It's interesting, because I thought the 10-year is like a different level of pension, right?
Yeah. Now maybe he was at the off. I don't know if he was at the off-season program and he saw writing on the wall. If he didn't feel enthused, but I respect someone who follows their own compass, and it's very easy to follow the compass of somebody else or kind of conventional thinking. And
it's kind of funny that this is the second time in 5 years, 6 years that the Eagles have signed a guy in free agency and he's retired before even having to play.
Third time.
Javis Brown. Who's the other?
Yeah. Well, Miles Jack last year.
But Miles Jack at least came to camp.
He at least came to camp.
Yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah, exactly. So third time. And the irony to it is, like, the Eagles run the easiest offseason program. So it's not as if he's like, oh God, I got to go through the rigors of such and such. But no, one thing that and I don't know DeVante Parker other than a frankly uninspiring press conference that we had in March with him. Uninspiring, not from his doing, but from I didn't learn that much about
when he's down.
I didn't learn that much about him. But one thing I hear from NFL players is that you can't fake it in football, right? Mm-hmm. You can't just like show up and go through the motions. It becomes pretty apparent right away that this guy just doesn't have it in him. And it's an old expression, I think, from Bill Parcells, where Bill Parcells said, once you think about retiring, you already made your decision. And now the reality is that wasn't the case with Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce thought about it every year. But the feeling is like, once you've thought, all right, what if I don't play anymore? Then you've kind of opened your eyes to the fact that you might not play anymore.
Okay.
But I'm happy for him. But to answer the other part of the question, it was rewarding in an odd and unsettling way to know how many loyal viewers and listeners we have, right? That's I say this in all earnestness. The best part of this job, bar none, is the audience, is the community. Like the notes that I get, or that we get, I should say. I received a terrific note the other day. It was like it was longer than a chapter in one of my books, and I say that respectfully. It was it was nice. It was from overseas. Trying to think that the country, England, or no, he's not in England now. Maybe he's in Ireland now. It's a really nice note.
All
And
the
he
same.
actually he started listening to us. Well, he lived in England back during 2018 when the Eagles were there, but he's not there anymore. I apologize if I don't have the country off the tip of my tongue. I think it might be Ireland. But you'll actually laugh about this. He listened to us on our final show at our former
Really?
our former
As
show.
his entry point?
As his entry point, because he kept hearing Greg Rosenthal talk about us on Around the NFL, and he wanted to find a show. And then he moved over with PHLY, and he's been a devoted listener since then. He's had so many nice things to say, and yeah, it was a really touching note. As I'm looking here, his name's Martin. No, I'm sorry, he lives in Hungary. Not Ireland, Hungary. I don't know. I'm on a show tomorrow night, maybe in or Thursday night, I think, in Ireland. I gotta look that up.
Big flex. You're flying over?
But I wish, but no, I've never been to Ireland. But anyways, the most rewarding part of this is a roundabout way of saying the most rewarding part of this job, without a doubt, is the audience. And so last night kind of affirmed.
Oh, and a nice job producing by
become
Julia.
a diehard.
Flash up the diehard right as you're talking about the community.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm gonna be transparent regarding diehards. I think a lot of my articles going forward are gonna be in the diehard tier. There might be a few that are free and open to read, but I think kind of as PHLY evolves here and seeing this loyal audience, more of my written content is going to be diehard than I initially thought when I took this job. And so this is all a way of saying, if you want to read Eagles content that I'm proud about, in addition, Les Bowen's writing for us, Bo Wolf from time to time, and we might have some more. You're going to have to become a diehard, and it's worth it for the most comprehensive Philly coverage, like all around the board, like our Flyers coverage. I can't wait for all the stuff Charlie's writing leading up to the draft. I was on the PHLY Sixers show yesterday. There's going to be some fun things coming up there. So, and of course, the Phillies are the best team in baseball. So make sure you become a diehard on PHLY.
Well said on the community aspects. I would agree with that. By the way, I do have the poster behind me. If you're listening only on audio, bit of a subterfuge. No, that's not the right word, but a covert mission today. We pushed the show back today for some school activities, and then I snuck into the office. Nobody was there. Nobody was in Studio B. They were talking around the corner. I just snuck in, got this bad boy, brought it home. However, I do have to say, you might, if you really look closely, you'll see that there's some marks on this thing. I tried to be able to hang it on the wall, but all I had was packing tape, and it was a total fiasco. And not only did it not hold the thing up, but it's taken off some of the color of the printing at different places. I've massacred my boy. I feel terrible, but you know what? Maybe no longer in mint condition is what it deserves to be.
Yeah, I think it's probably consistent with me. No longer in mint condition, right? So, yeah.
Everybody wants to do it in the chat. I think we got to do it at least once because for the DeVante Parker, let's give it a little. Zach. The year of Zach rolls on. I can't wait to find out how this plays out over the course of the season. You're gonna win the 53-man roster prediction.
I wouldn't go that far, right? But I'm gonna keep. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's article, which will be what we're discussing today, which is kind of looking forward to OTAs, kind of things I'm looking at. I'm looking forward to Thursday, writing about OTAs off of Wednesday's practice. We have 3 more days of shows. We have shows every single day other than July 4th and
Memorial Day
up until training camp. Yeah, which is a good day to be off. Actually, I got married the Sunday before Memorial Day. So nice. Memorial Day weekend is significant for me for many reasons. Although this Memorial Day is earlier than typical. So my anniversary is actually during the week next week as opposed to.
Okay.
That's kind of.
So you could nest Memorial Day, so then it would be your anniversary week every day.
Yeah, I'm very proud of my anniversary. It was like the best decision I ever made in my life. So.
besides panning the DeVante Parker signing.
No, definitely best decision.
And I tell you, before we get to our back and forth on the things we want to watch, I want to tell you one more community thing. Out and about this weekend, there was somebody in the chat yesterday who mentioned they gave me a little fist bump at the Italian Market Festival. That was cool. But I do have to tell you, there have been people who come up and recognize from the show, and it's always very nice. And I love to have those conversations. If you see Zach or I out, feel free to say hi. But I talked to Jane's music teacher, who shared that she recognized me from the show. Her fiance had gotten her onto the show. And I have to tell you, she is like the biggest celebrity in our house. Jane absolutely loves her. Shout out to Miss Anna. She's like the coolest person in our house. Jane cannot stop talking about her. All she wants to do is go to music class with Miss Anna. So for that one to come together was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shout out to Miss Anna. That's really
Absolutely. Cool. All right, Zach. We're 40 minutes in. We haven't gotten to the OTA preview. We're going to do that, though. There's just a lot that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
That we're interested in seeing. The first time we're going to see this 2024 Eagles team on the field. As we talked about, they're not in pads. We're not going to learn too much. It's sort of like checking the box. But let's just go sort of draft style back and forth on the first thing that's going to be on your checklist where your eyes are going to go when we walk onto the field tomorrow. I'll let you lead it off.
All right, let me pull up actually my notes here. But I could just tell you, even without looking at my notes, that I said the other day, I'm interested in seeing Saquon, and that's probably not the top number one pick. It's not the number one thing on my piece. My number one thing. Well, I don't want to take an answer from you, but I do want to say I'm looking forward to seeing Saquon in the Eagles uniform. I think running backs, even though they're not being brought to the ground, you can kind of see the acceleration with the ball. I imagine he'll be catching the ball out of the backfield. Having a star running back is something he's the highest profile running back the Eagles have had since DeMarco Murray in 2015. So
he's higher profile than that.
DeMarco Murray was the leading rusher in the NFL when the Eagles signed him. Like he was the defending leading rusher. That was, I think DeMarco Murray's profile was higher than Saquon's.
No way.
Really?
No way.
Interesting. Okay.
Profile. I mean, maybe the year he had the year before, but not profile wise. I would bet.
Oh yeah, Saquon, New York, number 2 pick.
That a higher percentage of Americans could recognize Saquon Barkley today than could have recognized DeMarco Murray 7 years ago or whatever.
That's fair. That's fair. But the highest profile one since then, right? I mean,
that's true.
Like Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, Josh Adams. None of them picked up the DeMarco attention. So yeah,
Josh Adams was close though.
Josh Adams was close though.
Yeah, Connor Hughes thought he had a good chance to make an impact on the Jets.
Hey, I always associate that London game and the London game against the Jags with Josh Adams. But yeah, I'm excited.
What an interesting running style he had.
Yeah, tall, upright. It was like Eddie George-esque, which is interesting. They're both Philly area natives.
Is it Eddie George or George Eddie?
Eddie George, Abington. He was a ghost at Abington.
There you go. Okay. To me, number one is the Fangio experience. The first time getting to see him coach this defense. How is it different than the kind of things that we have seen from the Eagles on that side of the ball over the Nick Sirianni era? Now, with this rolled in, Zach, did you see the comments today from who was it? Javon Holland of the Miami Dolphins about.
I did not. Fill me in.
Well, he was asked about the new Dolphins defensive coordinator, whose name escapes me right now. I apologize for that. And he was saying, well, it's nice. The really big, and then he was asked about the biggest difference, and he said, well, he's a good person. So basically, saying that Vic Fangio was not a good person.
Their D coordinator is Anthony Weaver.
Weaver, yes, first time coordinator, yes.
Yeah.
So I mean that sort of pissing match continues, and to be fair, I think our understanding of the dynamics league wide here are not just that this was like the players in the secondary. Like I think maybe the coaching staff, the head coach in particular, did not get along with Vic Fangio. This is like that organization believes that was not a good fit, and Fangio was probably not walking hand in hand or step by step with the way that they ran things. And that's on my radar, not from like, is Vic Fangio a good coach or not, but from, Nick Sirianni seems a lot like Mike McDaniel in terms of like being a player-friendly head coach. Now, he maybe is willing to be a little bit harder sometimes, and it's a different style for sure. But this is why, like, the clash of the way that they interact with players, like Vic Fangio is not going to be going up to the podium wearing a, Nolan Smith t-shirt. Right. Like,
sure. Yeah.
It's a little bit different. And I just seeing it all play out for the first time is the thing that I'm going to be watching.
Speaking about that's a good point. Speaking about Vic Fangio wardrobes, we're looking at low 80s tomorrow, high 70s. Is he gym teacher sweatpants? Is he? He's not a joggers guy like Sirianni. Yeah, Sirianni's a joggers guy. Sirianni's not wearing your gym teacher sweatpants, but sometimes he'll go shorts, right? Famously almost wore shorts to a game. He's
wearing pants.
Is Fangio in the old gym teacher sweatpants tomorrow, or is he pulling out shorts?
Great question. I'm guessing old gym teacher sweat shorts and sweatshirt.
Yeah, has to.
Right, like full long sleeve sweatshirt and like hiked up shorts. Yes. That's my hope, at least, to play.
My joke with football people is they have to wear the inverse of what the weather is.
100%.
When it's like bolstering or when it's scorching in training camp, they're wearing like 3 sweatshirts, pants. But then when it's like frigid outside, they're in shorts and a t-shirt. Right. It's 100%. So it's like you have to do the opposite of what you would tell your kids to wear.
Yeah. You gotta puff your chest out, show how manly you are, make sure nobody ever even ponders the idea that you might ever sit to pee.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't conflate those. I would.
Okay. All right, Zach, before we get to round 2 here, let's talk about TrueMark Financial Credit Union from right over there, where Julia went to high school. TrueMark is a financial credit union. And when you join a credit union like TrueMark Financial, you become part owner, which means the profits come back to you instead of going to the shareholders. We're talking better rates, lower fees, a better return on savings, and more flexible options with all the same digital tools and tech to make our lives easier. TrueMark has local roots, headquartered in Fort Washington with 24 branches in the Philly area. They serve our community and our people right here at home. Becoming a member of a credit union has so many benefits over being a customer at a big old bank that it's a total no-brainer. So head over to truemark.com/PHLY to learn more or to find a branch near you. That's truemark.com/PHLY, federally insured by the NCUA.
Every night, Emily's in bed around 9 o'clock. I'm in my office doing work, and in the corner of my eye, I always have baseball on TV this time of year or NBA basketball. Last night, I was watching Yamamoto on the Dodgers. Fun guy to watch. But I should have put some. I should put some money on the game. If I wanted to do that, I would have opened up the Bet Parks app, because we're brought to you by the Bet Parks app. Get in the zone with the Bet Parks Sportsbook app. Money's in the moments. What events are coming up? Well, the Phillies are the best team in baseball. It's the NBA conference finals coming up. Every night there's something intriguing to watch in baseball. Rafael Devers has hit a home run seemingly every day this past week. Luis Matos is hitting an RBI every day.
Just picked him up. Paid $12 a fab for him.
I gotta love it. He was in my minor league system from my team. I've been on the Luis Matos train for 3 years now. Anyways, you can win big with all-day action when you win your first $10 bet and earn $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. Download the app and play along with us. Must be 21 or older. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You've been paying attention to Jeopardy Masters at all, Zach?
I have not. Tell me what I'm missing.
Ooh, I mean, just great, high-quality gameplay. Fantastic. Now I'm 2 episodes behind, but I believe that I will catch up on the semifinals before the finale tomorrow night. Rooting hard for Victoria, who has just been a dynamo, tour de force.
I'm rooting hard for Victoria too, because you have good Jeopardy barometer. Real quick, someone here, Smy Guy, says, Zach, how do you have time to work all the time and be on NBA, MLB Sicko. I got to say, my brothers, if they were on the show, which I hope they don't come on the show because they would make fun of me incessantly. I would probably actually would feel like every other day on the show. They would tell you that their biggest gripe with me is that I am a passive sports watcher. And in other words, that I'm doing something on my screen.
That's their biggest gripe with you?
Screen. Or no, they tease me. They're like, you make like you watch all these games, but really you're doing work and you have the game on. So you're not like they're hanging on every single
I'm with you.
Possession.
I'm with you.
No, my brothers don't miss a possession of a game. Like
I've got your back here.
Okay. Yeah. So I just don't have other stuff on the TV. Like there's a list of shows that I want to watch this summer, but I have a game on every night when I work. That's
what's on that list?
Kind of my thing. Well, actually, there's a show coming out tomorrow on Netflix. I'm not saying anyone has to get a streaming product. It's only if you would like to. But the Shane Gillis show, Tires, that is coming out. I want to watch the Jerry Seinfeld movie on Netflix, which I have not watched yet. My grandfather says I would love the Lincoln show on Apple TV.
Oh yeah.
What's the Manhunt? It's called.
I believe right. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to watch that. So there's a handful of other shows that I'll try to catch up on this summer, because once I kind of the work at night dies down, I'll start watching more shows with Emily. Right now, it's still kind of a busy time of year, busier than I expected. Yeah.
I believe it's your pick, actually.
Yeah. All right, I'm going wide receiver 3. For the reasons we talked about at the top of the show. I want to see who's in there with the first team, or because they're allowed to be in 11 on 11. So I would like to see that. And I want to see how does Paris Campbell
your guess?
Look. My guess is Paris Campbell to start off.
My guess is Covey for tomorrow.
Ooh, I like that. By the way, Covey's I put this on Twitter yesterday. Covey's the oldest receiver on the team. How about that? He narrowly beats out Jacob Harris.
It's funny that Campbell is even below Jacob Harris.
Yeah. Campbell's 26. Covey's 27.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you think it's going to be Covey out there? Okay.
But just a guess. It could be Campbell. Sure. It's also like we will make a big deal out of who it is, and there's a good chance that it'll be different next week, or it was different when they practiced Monday, right? On the wide receiver front, to me, the most interesting person to watch is Ainias Smith. Because I think there's the most theoretical upside there, even if the profile leaves a little bit to be desired. But if he is who the Eagles think he is, then he should win that job eventually. And if he is who the Eagles think he is, which is somebody who plays faster and is more explosive than he tested, then he should look explosive tomorrow. He should stand out on that front. And so it'll be interesting to see if that's the case.
Great point. Looking forward to watching that.
Okay. To me, the next one is I don't want to. I guess I will roll 2 in here together for the purposes of time. But the top 2 picks, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I want to see how Quinyon Mitchell moves. Does he match up to that time speed, which was super impressive? Like, are we going to see him in an actual drill in live speed against DeVante Smith or AJ Brown? That would be a lot of fun if he does. And just like, how does he look? It's first impressions. You want to see those first round picks make a good first impression, and the same goes for Cooper DeJean. Now with Cooper DeJean, it's also a little bit more, where does he line up? In addition to how he moves, I think my expectation here, even if it is that he's going to end up being the week 1 nickel, I think you got to start him on the outside, because in the interest of player development, the big picture conversation here is he's here to hopefully eventually replace Darius Slay. And so, let's get that down first before we start adding to his plate. Probably easier to go, master that and then come inside, as opposed to vice versa, especially knowing that he spent time inside in college.
Let me ask you a cornerback follow-up question here, because James Bradberry, you made a great point. I thought back in February or March that every snap Bradberry takes during the spring and summer, if he gets to that point, is a snap that's not going to a cornerback you're developing. Do you think James Bradberry is going to be there? Do you think James Bradberry is going to be involved? Do you think James Bradberry is going to be the first cornerback up over Quinyon Mitchell with the starters?
I mean, as long as he's on the roster, I think he is going to be there, and he's going to be with the ones, right? I think it would be weird if he wasn't with the ones.
Sure.
So that is my expectation. And, it's maybe we're overstating it, but I do think that come training camp, at least, like those reps probably are better served going to Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and Keely Ringo.
That's a good point. So the next one on my list, I'll say, is right guard, and not right guard in terms of how they're playing, because
sure,
they're not wearing pads, but who's taking right guard snaps other than Tyler Steen? Is Matt Hennessy playing right guard, or is he mostly at center? Are they moving Trevor Keegan over from left guard to right guard? What other options are there? Which sounds like Becton is going to be a right tackle, not a right guard, an offensive tackle, I should say, not a right guard. But yeah, I want to see what bodies they're looking at that position, because that's a true training camp competition, one would think.
Yeah, I think that's right. Again, we're not going to be able to tell how they're doing, but from who's lining up where, offensive line depth chart stuff, that's certainly the most interesting thing. And I think you're right to peg Hennessy as a key one here. Like if he's the second team center, then maybe he's not in the mix at right guard, but I think he probably is, even if he is the second team center. But just from the guys they have on the roster, I think you would want McMahon, and then you've got Jason Poe, so maybe Hennessy's at guard for that reason. Other offensive line depth chart stuff, I guess, as you said, like which side is Trevor Keegan on is kind of interesting, and then which side is Becton on? Are Becton and Fred Johnson? Is it Fred on the left and Becton on the right, vice versa? Just kind of interesting.
Good point.
All right, I'll give you my next one. This is a total. Now Isaiah Rodgers is a good one. Les brought him up yesterday, so I won't go there again. But that's a guy who you really do want to see how he moves after being out of the game, or at least out of the league for a year and not getting to practice with the team. It's possible that he comes in and looks really good, and that would be a nice surprise for the Eagles. I'm going off the board here, and this is a guy who I had as my surprise on my 53-man roster. That's Mekhi Garner. The safety depth is the other spot where like the Eagles may not be done. They've got guys who can play there potentially with Avonte Maddox and maybe Cooper DeJean, but CJ Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown working his way back from a torn ACL. There's an opportunity there, and Mekhi Garner, probably squeezed out at corner. Got moved to safety in the middle of the season last year on the practice squad and ended up getting elevated for a couple games. If that's his new position, has he changed his body in any way? Does he look like he knows what he's doing there? That would be a nice, pleasant surprise for the Eagles if he could be, on the bubble as a roster caliber player.
I like that. Is he eligible for the Camp Crush?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Going into camp.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay in safeties. I'm a bit of a nerd, or a lot of a nerd. So today's no different than any other days. But I always say you have to use your senses. You're not just watching, but you're listening. And I want to listen to CJ Gardner-Johnson in practice, because if you remember, well, I know you remember, but if the audience remembers, the Eagles acquired CJ Gardner-Johnson on cutdown day 2 years ago. So we actually have never seen him in a full practice with the Eagles. We've only seen him in the warm-ups. And I want to see, like, is he an instigator in practice? That's one thing we've always heard. And my guess, and this goes back to when they signed him and embracing the personality, I think he's going to be even further emboldened here. Like they're really going to emphasize, and maybe he'll play up to it even too much. Like, be CJ, you're here to be that guy. So I want to hear him at practice. I want to know, like, is he talking shit, or is he talking, is he talking trash? Is he screaming out directions? Like what's he like listening to at practice? They used to say, a blind man would go to hear Sandy Koufax pitch, right? Well, if I close my eyes, I know CJ Gardner-Johnson is on the field.
Who do you want to smell?
I was gonna tell you who I don't want to smell, but that wouldn't be
Brandon Graham.
I love BG, so I'm not gonna Congratulations, by the way, getting a doctorate degree. It's from St. Joseph's, I believe.
Big deal.
This weekend, yeah. I don't know who I want to smell, so I don't have an answer for you there. Who do you think smells the best in that locker room?
Well, I know the answer is AJ Brown, because he wears the same deodorant that I do.
Okay.
Yeah, we're both secret men.
As I once learned in a great story you wrote, Jason Peters had the finest cologne in all the land.
Yes, yeah, known for his good smell.
Here's
Okay.
one, Dom. Yeah, Dom DeSandro. Dom DeSandro wears
That's what you want to smell?
I don't want to smell. I'm just saying
You
Dom's gonna smell. Dom's gonna smell good. He wears a lot of cologne. He's known for his cologne. So Dom.
Okay.
Also, that means I'm talking to Dom. So that's a good thing, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess the next one for me is linebacker, and really more than anything, like, is Zach Bond lining up as an inside linebacker,
Exactly.
or is he practicing with the edges? Because the depth there is interesting. You've got, in theory, Nakobe Dean and Devin White at the top of the depth chart, Oren Burks and Jeremiah Trotter with the 2s, and Ben Van Sumeren and Brandon Smith with the 3s. Is Zach Bond there, as Vic Fangio hinted at his first press conference and only press conference so far? That's curious. And, like, is Nakobe Dean 100% fully ready to go after having 2 Liz Franks?
Good point.
I guess that's my next one. The thing is, like, I want to see how Nolan Smith looks. I want to see how Jordan Davis looks. He looked slim at the
exactly
Eagles Autism Challenge, right? But you just can't. You're not going to learn really anything from the defensive front 7 guy, or the defensive edge guys and defensive tackles in a setting like this.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there for my next one. I want to see how Jordan Davis looks, literally, right? I saw the photos from the Eagles Autism Challenge. We had
if we were doing the 5 senses, he would be the one that you would want to touch. From a reporting standpoint.
Without, okay. I mean, I want to see what he literally looks like, right? Not how he plays, but what he looks like. Because and I heard Brandon Graham was interviewed the other day. He got honored yesterday, something with the city of Philadelphia. I forget specifically what it was. But credit Brandon Graham there. But he said Jordan Davis is going to surprise people this year, right? And so I want to see what he looks like physically out there, and if he is noticeably leaner or in better shape.
Okay. Now you'll know. I mean, we're not mentioning DeVante Smith and AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert. Like, as long as they're breathing and upright, that's fine. That's all.
But let me ask, because the first thing in my notes for tomorrow is Jalen Hurts, right? Because we start with Jalen Hurts. What are you looking forward to seeing from Jalen Hurts?
Demeanor. I just want to see if he, and that not like from a good or bad, like I can judge what matters. I just want to notice if there's anything different about him. Is he a little bit more talkative? What's his dynamic with Kellen Moore like?
Sure.
During practice, let's see what that's like. What is it like with Nick Sirianni, given the things that we've talked about? That is a little bit more interesting to me than, who he's throwing the ball to or how his arm looks. That stuff will come later.
Great point. And to build on that, though, within the offense, like, is he under center more? Are there things that he's doing? They're not showing much of the scheme, but are there noticeable differences with whether it's his throwing, like mechanics, or even just getting the ball out from this new coaching staff? Are there different drills that he's doing? So yeah, Jalen Hurts, you have to mention him here.
And then the last thing I would say is, from the quarterback standpoint, I'm curious to see how Kenny Pickett looks. How does the ball come out of his hand in person versus Tanner McKee?
Sure.
Like a guy who we think has upside as a real number 2 caliber quarterback. It's an interesting, just side-by-side comparison that I look forward to seeing.
If I can ask you one question here before the time runs out here, although we are over time, we're giving you a little bonus.
I'm here. I'm here for you.
We started the show with DeVante Parker. Okay. DeVante Parker. I know there's a lot of interest among the fans in numbers. Okay. You're Greg DeLimitros. Okay. And number 13 is now available.
That was Parker's number. Okay.
Yeah. Who gets top priority? There's a line of people outside your office saying, "Hey, Greg D, Mr. D."
I mean, this is not his decision.
Well, no, I mean, it actually, like, oftentimes it is his decision, like, in terms of the assignment. But yeah, who gets top priority for 13? I don't even know who would want it, but I mean, do you give it to Anaya Smith or Johnny Wilson? Or do you go with the defensive guy who's like, do you go to Quinyon Mitchell, or do you go to Cooper DeJean and say, like, Cooper DeJean wore wore 3 in college, right? Do you say, would you rather 13 compared to 33? I don't know if you would rather have 13. Are there is there a wide receiver who you think gets priority here?
Let's see. I'm looking at the roster now.
Does Paris Campbell get it?
That's interesting. What number is Quinyon Mitchell?
Quinyon
he doesn't.
Yeah, he's 30. Quinyon Mitchell.
He's 30.
But he's probably waiting out Zach McPherson. Or no, I'm sorry. He's not 30. Quinyon Mitchell. Or no, he is 30. I'm sorry. He is 30. Quinyon Mitchell. He's probably waiting out McPherson though for 27. That's my guess.
Yeah, 30 is such a bad number for him. I think if I were, this is probably a better question for Brandon Lee Gowton.
Okay.
But I think 82 in Anaya Smith is okay.
Okay.
80 for Paris Campbell feels not right. I feel like if Paris Campbell wants 13, he could probably have it. The other guys have fine-ish numbers at the wide receiver spot. And I don't know who else would be pushing for it. Now, DeJean, if he wants it, I don't think 13 is great for DeJean either. So,
okay.
I don't know.
So you think the wide receivers are the guys to look here for?
I think so.
Now, what if like Will Shipley comes in and Will Shipley says, "Hey, get me out of 39 and give me 13." Do you think, Will, you haven't earned it yet, man? You're a 4th round pick. You gotta do a little more to be a running back in 13. But then Will says, "Hey, you gave Kenny Gainwell this desired number early in his career. He was a 5th round pick." I don't know if Will would say that, but just something to think about here.
Marty in the chat says Jalen Hunt wore 13 in college.
Ooh, does Jalen Hunt get?
He's 58. 58 is the Trent Cole. That's a pretty good number.
That's true. Hunt 58. That is true. Yeah. Or do you leave that open? Is that like like Michael Thomas can get 13 if he comes here, right?
Yeah, that's part of the carrot.
Yes, that's part of the carrot.
Interesting. I like that.
Anyway, something to think about.
Now we have, according to the roster, there are 2 sets of duplicate numbers so far. Terrell Lewis and Jacob Harris both have 46.
Yeah, that's
Brandon
okay,
Smith and Shaquan Davis both have 47.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Be funny if I could see having never met the man before, I could see Terrell Lewis, 4-year pro, saying I'm not sharing a number. Give me 13.
It's like Chris Long used to share a locker.
Yeah,
when he signed, he's like, Chris Long. How about that? Yeah. So something to pay attention to. If the Eagles keep 13 open, if they say if Nick Sirianni gives a speech, hey, any of you guys on the bottom of the roster, if you guys want to be here and earn 13, you have to play your rear ends off this spring.
There you go. I just want you to know, by the way, that I read your story, and I did notice. I was hoping it was an Easter egg that you were talking about how many 60-catch seasons guys had.
100% Easter egg. I appreciate that, Bo. That's why I love you. 100% Easter egg there. Yes. Yeah. Speaking of which, maybe they bring Nelson Aguilar back. Maybe the Ravens are looking to move him up.
There you go.
Yeah, I like Nelly. 60-catch season.
You can finally write that story on his
on his
recommendations for food for restaurants on the road.
I don't know what the statute of limitations is on that, but yeah, who knows?
All right. Good stuff today, Zach. Congratulations again to you and your whole family on the retirement of DeVante Parker. And thank you to everybody for listening and letting Zach know how happy you are for him. We are back tomorrow. Now, the Eagles practice at about 12:45 is our understanding. So our plan is to come live again from home at 4 o'clock. So unless that changes, we will, in which case we'll let you know. The plan, 4 o'clock for tomorrow to talk about OTAs, and then back noon on Thursday and Friday from our normal studio setting. Thank you once again to everybody for watching and listening. Thanks to Julia for getting it done from the dog bar. And we will talk to you tomorrow. As always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.